I've been testing portable audio players for as long as I can remember. Everything started with portable cassette players somewhere in 1990s, then I moved to portable CD players in the 2000s, then iPod came along, and finally I could squeeze my entire music collection into my pocket. However, the biggest revolution in portable audio started the moment when custom-made portable digital audio players were finally rocking dedicated DAC chips with dedicated headphone amplifier circuits that sounded so much better than everything else I've heard before. In time, I tried all and everything and settled on a HiBy RS8, which I believe delivered around 85 to maybe 90% of my reference HiBy setup. This is an amazing sounding player. Today, however, I'll discuss the next in line, the RS8 Mark II, which I believe changed so many things, not only versus RS8, but versus any other portable digital audio player present right now on the market. This is going to be a long video, so please get a snack and a drink and let's go ahead with this review. A lot of you guys will complain that we no longer get a fully CNC titanium case of the original RS8. Instead, we get a fully CNC machined aluminum case. But hold on a second, you should know that aluminum is by about 10 times better at heat dissipation, and considering that we have a much faster CPU and a redesigned DAC and headphone amplifier sections, it all makes sense now. The second generation also weighs 411 grams, making it by 173 grams lighter compared to the first generation, and all of that was possible thanks to an all aluminum case, making it much more pocket friendly. When I first saw the RS8 Mark II online, I didn't know how to react. But in time, this unusual shape started growing on me, and even this gold-like finish was a no-no at the very beginning, but right now I find it so attractive, so cool and quite unusual. Words cannot describe exactly how it looks, but hopefully these shots will show you at least a glimpse of what you should expect. I've seen a lot of unique looking portable DAPs, but this one takes the cake in the uniqueness department with this angled shape. Did I mention this incredibly satisfying volume wheel that I cannot stop from turning in either direction? We still have a 5.5-inch Full HD touchscreen, which is vibrant thanks to an IPS panel. It's probably not big enough for comfortable gaming, but it's enough for casual browsing or for watching videos over YouTube. I think this display size is just fine. A bigger display will bring along a bigger case, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable holding a bigger DAP than this. In the usual fashion, all of the buttons were moved on the right side, and this is where we have the micro SD card slot, and everything else was moved on the bottom, where you'll find your headphone outputs / line outputs, a USB Type-C for charging and data transfer, and a big surprise, we also have a mini HDMI I2S output, effectively transforming it into a streamer and digital transport. As far as I know, this is the only high-end DAP that uses the Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 CPU, which makes it so much faster compared to the RS8 and also to the Shanling M9, which I also have besides me. This Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 is lightning fast, and it feels like having a brand new smartphone in your pocket. It really moves much faster compared to the RS8. Everything loads instantly. I don't need to wait for a couple of seconds to load Tidal, Qobuz or Spotify. This is where it feels like a much better unit compared to any other portable device. If you are wondering how it compares performance-wise with the RS8 and to the Shanling M9, another high-end DAP, Just look at these frame rates in a 3D Mark test and combine that with the CPU score I've got from the Geekbench 6, and you could imagine how much faster the RS8 Mark II is in real life versus the first generation. The RAM and ROM memory doubled versus the first generation, so yes, we have 16 gigs of RAM memory and 512 gigs of storage, so finally I can use this one right away without needing to buy a micro SD card, because 512 gigs is more than enough for a substantial music collection. Obviously, we have an open Android 13 platform, so you can install any third-party software directly from Google Play Store. All of your streaming apps, YouTube, browsers, games, anything really, and all of that will run smooth as butter thanks to that Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 CPU. The biggest highlight for me is that we have right now a brand new Darwin-free DAC architecture combined with a brand new adaptive headphone amplifier stage. In very simple terms, this guy combines an ultra powerful FPGA with an Artois LED DAC, effectively dropping the noise floor quite a lot and also raising dynamic range quite a lot as well. There is a lot to learn about this DAC section. It's really something else compared to our regular chip-based solution, and the same can be said about this headphone amplifier stage, that instead of working in either Class A or Class AB, you can now choose between 64 steps, so you can make it closer to Class A or maybe full Class A. And if you don't drive demanding loads, you can go lower or use Class AB instead to preserve battery life. Obviously, its headphone amplifier stage uses custom transistors in a fully balanced operation, and it provides up to 812 milliwatts of power in 32 ohms via that 4.4mm balanced output. Now, while that doesn't seem quite a lot, remember that this one uses transistors and you can bias them in full Class A operation. So in a way, you can say that this is a higher quality power compared to, say, op-amp based headphone amplifiers that are working mostly in Class AB in portable devices like this one. There are many other things I didn't touch base, like Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.3 with the best codec support, including aptX lossless. However, if you want to learn all and everything about this little guy, then please check out HiBy's official page for it that I left below. As for me, I'm ready to hit some eardrums and talk about its sound in an overkill way. Before I go, I just need to mention that this is a loaner unit that I've got from HiBy, and sadly, after finishing crafting this video, I'll need to send it back. So this is not a sponsored video, and I'll try to be as honest as possible with you guys. Sound-wise, I just want to mention that before getting the RS8 Mark II, I knew exactly what to expect from this guy, because I've been using the RS8 third generation for quite a while, and there are a couple of things that stood out on this unit versus many other portable digital audio players that made me use this one for a long time, and let's start with that. First of all, digital glare, digitus, brightness is never a thing on HiBy devices, but especially on flagship grade portable devices like RS8 and R8 Mark II. Secondly, fully discrete amplifier stages biased into Class A operation is something else entirely compared to op-amp based headphone amplifiers biased into Class AB operation like what we have on most portable devices of today, especially when driving some demanding loads like planar magnetic headphones. This guy was working just outstanding. The control of the drivers, the bass lamp, all of that was kind of impressive, even if we don't have as much power. And thirdly, the open and wide soundstage is truly what kept me using the RS8 for such a long time, because with desktop headphones, it sounds mostly like a desktop DAC connected to a desktop headphone amplifier. It sounds big, it sounds holographic, it sounds deep, Exactly what I like about desktop devices. The only two drawbacks I've experienced long-term with the RS8 is that it wasn't the cleanest and the most resolving sounding DAP, nor was it the fastest sounding one, sounding a bit slower and mellower even compared to a more affordable R8 Mark II. But this is all going to change today with the RS8 Mark II, and let's talk about that. By far the biggest upgrade when going from the RS8 to RS8 Mark II is a massive boost in transparency, in detail retrieval, in cleanliness, or how much information is going forward. And you don't need more than 5 minutes to realize with a pair of flagship IMs or maybe flagship desktop headphones that there is simply more information going forward. There is more things happening on the micro scale with the RS8 Mark II, and the difference is not small at all. The difference is shocking and it's immediate, and from tens of portable digital audio players that I tried so far, this one takes the crown as the most resolving sounding one that I tried up to this point. Especially if you like putting your music under the microscope, this is the one to get. There is something else that helped making it so crystal clear sounding, and that's the super low noise floor that I've got with the RS8 Mark II. This is literally the lowest noise floor again that I have experienced via portable devices. Especially if you're using ultra sensitive IMs, you can feel that right away, that there is more silence, more blackness in between the notes, which I like quite a lot. There's an absolute silence in between the notes, and that makes every musical note stand out so clearly. So you can hear every note individually in its own bubble of sound. The absolute silence between the notes improves dynamic range and thus detail retrieval as well. The second biggest improvement is the transient response, attack, and decay of the notes. The RS8 was good, sometimes great, but it was actually outperformed by a more affordable R8 Mark II, which sounded lightning fast by comparison with this one. RS8 was more softer in a way, was mellower, not as fast, and it didn't work that great with modern tracks, with electronica, with rock, metal, so on and so forth. It was good, but not really outstanding. We now have a much faster CPU and a much more powerful FPGA, and believe it or not, but that CPU is helping that FPGA achieving a faster pace, rhythm, and timing. When RS8 felt a little smooth and mellow, right now feels snappy and impactful on the RS8 Mark II. Not only it responds faster to dynamic shifts, but it's also bringing along a stronger kick in the lowest octaves in the bass. And finally, I could discuss things like bass slam on a flagship device made by HiBy. There is one thing that I didn't want HiBy to change on the RS8 Mark II, and that was its character, the way it beautifies the music without messing with the frequency response, or the way it boosts the contrast and adds more meat on the bone, but without adding some extra sharpness. All of that remained intact on the RS8 Mark II, and in this regard, these two devices are more alike than different. And if you ever tried a high-end art wireless DAC, then RS8 Mark II sounds exactly like a high-end art wireless DAC. I must say that there is a lot in common between the RS8 Mark II and my Rockna Wavedream reference signature. It's almost like shrinking my Rockna DAC together with a fully discrete amplifier into a pocket-friendly unit that fits into my pocket. It's redundant really discussing the frequency response or the tonal balance on a reference DAP like this, because it delivers all of the bass energy, all of the mid-range purity, and all of the sweetness or a treble glare sound regardless of the settings of the IMs or headphones attached. This could be the strongest asset of the RS8 Mark II because it works really well with every musical genre, something that I couldn't say about the RS8 third generation. This one was not so fast, it was a little bit mellower, so it didn't work that well with modern music, but that is no longer the case with the RS8 Mark II. So from relaxing to aggressive music and to everything else in between is the one that I'm reaching my hand when I want to hear the truth, but also immerse myself into the music. Although it feels like the power output didn't go up as much as people expected, so we have 780 milliwatts of power here versus 812 milliwatts on the RS8 Mark II. You should also know that every part of the headphone amplifier circuit is now powered by a 7.8 volt battery versus a 3.8 volt battery. So this is actually a pretty big change. Doubling the voltage intake automatically means that the headphone amplifier has a bigger output swing, ultimately delivering more current into the same load. In simple terms, the control of the drivers is better on the second generation RS8, and again the difference is actually not that small, especially if you're using some planar magnetic headphones like T+A Solitaire P, like HE1000 by HiFiMan, maybe Mesa Elite, then the difference is actually substantial, and you can hear that this one is simply better controlling the bass output. It's a higher quality bass compared to what we get on the RS8, and everything has to do not with those milliwatts, but with the volts coming from the battery that is powering the whole headphone amplifier circuit. The original RS8 worked very good with most of my headphones, with the exception of a couple of super hard to drive ones like HiFiMan Susvara, HiFiMan Susvara Unveiled. There are many others that didn't work, like DCA Stealth, DCA Expanse. That is also the case with the RS8 Mark II, but this time around, all of those planar magnetics are sounding much closer to a desktop Hi-Fi setup because the headphone amplifier is snappier, there is more energy, there is more slam in the bass, and overall, I feel that the sound is more fun, more engaging on the RS8 Mark II versus a mellower, softer, and less engaging sound on the original RS8. In simple terms, it has a higher voltage swing and also a higher current delivery, meaning that it works better not only with planar magnetic headphones, but also with high impedance dynamic headphones like HD800, for example. So although the volume is pretty much on the same level with RS8, maybe it's a little bit lower here, so I have a little bit more headroom. What struck me is that the sound was simply more mature, it was better controlled, the basses were getting lower, the mid-range was fuller bodied, and overall the sound was much more complete versus the RS8. So I'd say that it works better and much closer to our reference desktop headphone amplifier compared to the RS8. So the headphone amplifier is definitely better on the RS8 Mark II, and although the numbers are not showing that, my subjective listening tests are telling me that this is a much better unit when driving some demanding headphones like planar magnetic headphones. So everything from T+A Solitaire P, Mesa Elite, RSDT Charybdis, everything worked really well on the RS8 Mark II, and I still had about 30% of headroom remaining on tap. If you're wondering how much of an improvement is the RS8 Mark II versus the original RS8 and versus the limited edition Shanling M9, only 500 units of this one were made, let's discuss about all of that. I'll skip their specs and whatnot and will focus mainly on their sound. There is just one thing I want to show you. The Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 is bringing along some powerful quality of life improvements. It's like using my own smartphone. The aging RS8 and M9 are much slower at every task, and it's a bit frustrating waiting for a couple of seconds until an app is loading or a video over YouTube starts playing. The M9 and RS8 use the same Snapdragon 665 CPU released 7 years ago. Both HiBy devices will offer you a lot more sound enhancements to play with. We have hardware plugins, we have MSEB settings, we have a parametric EQ option, and let's not forget the Class A or Class AB bias, all of which are missing on the M9. You cannot customize the sound as much on the Shanling, and if you don't like the stock sound, then you are in deep trouble. You should also know that both HiBy devices use a custom 100% DAC section and custom 100% headphone amplifier section, while M9 uses off-the-shelf DAC chips and also off-the-shelf op-amps at the headphone amplifier section. So the technology is quite different. Sound-wise, for a very long time, this one, the M9, was the king in terms of soundstage until I started listening to the RS8. So I believe in terms of soundstage, the RS8 together with the M9 are very, very similar. They sound quite big, quite holographic, quite 3D, but the RS8 Mark II is simply taking the lead, and I'd say that the difference is by at least 15%, maybe 20% in terms of how big the sound can get. The RS8 Mark II is definitely taking the crown in terms of 3D effects and soundstage and holography, simply sounding nicer compared to the rest. Moving on to resolution, there is another thing that is simply much better on the RS8 Mark II, and again the difference is no small at all, again by around 20% clearer compared to M9. And the last one in this department, I believe, is the original RS8, which was good enough but not really on the same level with M9 or RS8 Mark II. The newest HiBy sounds clearer, it has a blacker background, and it's not that far away from a really high-end DAC. When discussing the transient response, I believe that we get a similar story, the RS8 being mellower and slower and softer as well, followed by the M9 and then by the RS8 Mark II, which is, I believe, faster, snappier, and everything is just nimble sounding on this one. Power output is the only region where I feel the M9 is outperforming the rest, but there is a catch. While there is indeed more volume on tap with the Shanling, the sound is tighter with the RS8 Mark II via planar magnetic headphones. The bass in particular feels of a higher quality when pushing the volume higher on the RS8 Mark II. So we get more raw power on the M9, but a grippier and a punchier power delivery on the RS8 Mark II, which I believe is more important to have. Last but not least, we have a somewhat different character. M9 is all about that mid-range, the bass follows next, and then the treble doesn't feel as powerful, and I'd say it's slightly rolled off in there. Something that I do not have on the RS8 Mark II. I believe this one is simply outstanding in terms of frequency response, and that's why I didn't talk about that. Everything with the bass, mid-range and treble is really outstanding on the RS8 Mark II. Nothing is going up or down, everything is really defined. And I'd say that the RS original one is somewhere in between these two. It's a little bit rolling off the upper treble, but not as much like the M9. I like all of them, but I say that this one is more honest, more transparent, and much closer to our reference DAC. And let's not forget some other quality of life improvements on the RS8 Mark II, like Wi-Fi 7, like Bluetooth 5.3 with the best codec support, such as aptX lossless, and of course that adaptive amp settings that no other DAP has right now. Wrapping up, this is by far the most unusual looking portable digital audio players. And while it has some weird angles, don't forget that we also have this thick leather case in the package that will nicely protect the unit from the outside world. If you are a true music lover or audiophile, then this is as good as it gets. And I'm sorry, everything that bothered me on the RS8 is no longer bothering me on the RS8 Mark II. It's more technical, it's more resolving, it's cleaner sounding, it's faster, holography effects are better, and the power output is nicer, having a better slam as well. Dynamics improved, the noise floor went down, so I simply cannot complain about this one. It's literally an RS8 on steroids, rocking a much faster CPU with double the RAM and ROM memory. This is the Ferrari SF90XX or the Hennessy Venom, depending on if you are living in Europe or USA. It's truly something else compared to what I tried before. If you want the best DAP, I think this is the one. This is as good as DAPs can get. There is, however, one uncomfortable part about this conversation. How much is the HiBy RS8 Mark II? Well, $3,899 US. Thanks for watching.